At Relentless Digital, we believe in breaking barriers and driving innovation. That's why we are extremely proud to sponsor the Power Women of the Trades podcast, supporting the voices and success of women in the home service industry. Together, we're creating a future where talent shines, regardless of gender, and diversity thrives. Join our journey at relentless-digital.com and always be relentless in your pursuit of excellence.
This episode of Power Women of the Trades is also brought to you by Forrest Perry of Forrest Perry Digital Marketing. Want to generate more leads for your service business? Trust his team to deliver quality new customer leads and protect your brand online. Check out perrymarketing.com today.
Hello everyone. We want to give a quick shout out to our amazing partner, Rilla, the game changer in the home service industry. Rilla's virtual ride-along software means no more physical ride-alongs. With Rilla, you can coach your team virtually 100 times faster and boost your close sale rates like never before. Don't miss out. Join the movement today and watch your sales soar. Visit rilla.com/PWT to learn more.
Welcome to Power Women of the Trades podcast. This show is all about breaking barriers and changing the game. Our guests will feature some of today's most successful female entrepreneurs and other advocates of our industry as well. Because if there's one thing we know for sure, female-led entrepreneurship drives change on multiple levels. We want to empower women in the trade industry like you so you can maximize your potential, stay balanced, achieve long-term success, and claim ownership over your life. Let's get started.
Welcome back to Power Women of the Trades with Cassie and Heather.
And Leslie.
And Leslie.
Yay!
I'm so excited. This is, Leslie said, like a full circle moment for sure. It's been a moment in the works for a while, but Leslie has a lot going on in the life, and so all the stars had to align, the timing, getting through the holidays, all of those things. And so Leslie, welcome back. I miss you.
You guys.
I love you.
I
miss you.
It's so funny.
I talk to you every day.
True.
I don't talk to her every day.
Yeah.
Though. I text you sometimes, but I've been really busy too.
Yeah.
So side note real quick, when Leslie left the podcast, it's like we made a post. It wasn't a thing, but I think a lot of people often don't believe that it's not a thing, because social media has always geared us towards life doesn't just like change without a fight or
People
something.
love drama.
And I kept telling Leslie, I was like, people are going to think we got in a fight. She's like, let's stage a fight.
That'd be funny.
She was literally.
Make it exciting. Let's use this to our advantage.
Yeah,
I was embezzling money or I don't know.
Literally, she said, like, let's say I was embezzling money. I'm like, Leslie, absolutely not. So
the podcast didn't make enough to embezzle, but if it did.
Right? This is not contrary to what anyone might believe. The podcast is simply our giving back to our space, like as women in the space, but we definitely are not cashing checks over here. We run negative even, like we appreciate our sponsors, but being able to get this thing going, equipment and all of those things, like it's way more than what we even thought when we started it, Leslie, right? And so anyways, taking it back to the original birth of Power Women of the Trades. And I've said this a few times, but with Leslie on the show for sure, because I know this will be a hot episode. I talked Leslie into like 7 episodes back in 2022. It was like December 22. And I was like, I had been talking to her for a while about it. And she was like, no. And then something kind of spun it out. She said like 7 or 8 episodes. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. And then that turned into us starting the show at AHR. We started traveling. We started doing all these things. And then before Leslie left, I think we ended at like 70 or 80 episodes. So in full transparency, Leslie from the beginning was always going to not stay forever. And then she brought up, hey, remember I wasn't going to stay forever. And I'm like, yeah, okay, we already had so many episodes pre-recorded that I was like, I can't announce you leaving right now because your episodes are still going to go out for 6 months. We had so many episodes. So anyways, we announced it. And then for a little bit, I just wasn't sure who would be the new co-host.
Yeah.
That was forever. She's like, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't know. And I don't know. She kept telling me to do it by myself. And then I was like, no. And then, so long story short, all the stars then aligned and Heather was available. Because asking someone to be on a podcast, Leslie,
Oh
you know,
man, it's like it's a relationship.
mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's a partnership. So you have to really find the right person and make sure that you mesh well and you present well and that
Well, and that
you
we
keep
like
the vibes
aligned,
going.
right? And like that we aligned, you know, as Christian, right? And I'm not saying we had to align as Christians, but like as Christian people, we are always making sure that, well, I try to like surround myself with people that are like-minded, and whether you're Christian or not, I don't even know why I got off on that piece of it, but you know, like we want to have the same morals and same goals and same
mission, same values.
Yes. You know, like I know Heather knows this, but in the beginning, we had a lot of offers to be our sponsors, but it would have required us to sell our souls, you know, to some degree. I mean, selling our souls is probably dramatic.
Well,
but
we just felt very convicted to align ourselves with people of the same moral compass. Is that a good way to describe it? I think there's so, you know, in our space, we just have such a wide range of characters posturing and
we weren't going
fronting
to
and stunting. And so we were kind of like, okay, we have to, you know, you put your name on it and your brand on it, and you start, people identify you with just people you're adjacent to.
We weren't going to allow ourselves to be bought. Like we didn't start the podcast for money. We made money, right? Like we didn't start it. So often, this isn't all podcasts out there, but a lot of podcasts have what, like Leslie was saying earlier, something else that it's funneling to, like maybe a marketing company, and that podcast is funneling them marketing. Power Women of the Trades isn't a funnel to anything besides networking and women. There's nothing that by listening to the podcast, I'm not hoping you become a member of something with me, right? Or Heather or Leslie or whatever. And so it was just a different approach. And so we weren't obligated to take sponsorships for these big dollar amounts that were being presented to us just because, and then that's all we were allowed to talk about.
I feel like this brings up a really good segue. So let's just like get into it, because really this is just so prevalent, especially on social media and in our space when, I mean, this aligns with exactly what you're saying. You could go and ask a question. We have all of these groups, Facebook groups, where people are genuinely contractors and small business owners asking operation questions, asking like business questions, whatever it is. And what so many don't realize is that depending on where you are asking questions, you are at the top of the funnel for the people in that group to start answering. And there's a whole issue going on behind the scenes, and you're just trying to gather information, and there's an agenda to like segue you into something. And we just wanted to be like a safe place, right? We had nothing to gain from that. So
yeah, and I think, you know, I'm pretty passionate and opinionated on social media, and a lot of that comes from protection of things. What? No way. You know, and like what she's saying, there are so many of these groups that behind that group is
there's a hidden agenda.
There's a hidden agenda in every group that you're in.
And then people talking, you know, you ask a question and then you get 50 or 60 answers, and they're not really specific to the question you asked.
Yeah, and if the answer is DM me for more information, there's something that's being sold to you in that private message, and or, you know, silver bullets and hopes and dreams and things like that. And so for us, I mean, I go back to that because a lot of the episode right before this one airs, well, I was talking about the same thing. The reason why my protection and like walls come up in those scenarios of wanting to protect, especially the smaller contractor, is because of my own mistakes of seeing some of those things in those groups and buying into it, whiplashing and changing it in our business, and then costing us money because I saw this thing in this group that was supposed to be, the secret is, the hot take is, there's no silver bullet.
You are the silver bullet.
We were just talking about this with Josh. The ideas that you get from those groups, and every company is at a different point in their growth. You've got small companies, you have mid-sized companies, you've got large companies, you have culture issues, you have no culture issues, you have cash flow issues. Whatever your problem is so specific, a generalized question is going to...
So when you go in and ask this one question, there's a bunch of context that's not in there. And then what you're getting is funneled to someone else's funnel that's going to start, you know, hitting you with all these things of selling you these wonderful ideas and options. And you're just like, oh, maybe I need to do this. Maybe I need to buy into that. Maybe I need to whatever. And then what does that turn turn into.
Well, then you throw in the gurus that we all know and see all over Facebook.
Honestly, it's really rough out there, and I totally relate it to how the media is always tilting our head in a certain direction and how nobody trusts the media anymore, and we become our own news, right? Because that's truthfully what's happening, and it's sad, and I've definitely been a victim to it, but you live and you learn.
And you have to recognize that if you believe that that's happening in our own media, why wouldn't it happen in our own space?
Yeah, for sure.
And so we say that with not suggesting don't trust anyone, but this is a good reason why, like, I stand firm, especially if my name's behind it. I know, Heather, you feel the same way. Leslie was always the same way. Like, if you need a recommendation for a coach or a best practice group, I always go to the ones that have been around for 30 years, right? Because they're tried and true and they've been here. Anything that's like a pop-up shop, those are the ones that start getting scary because first of all, did you have any experience running a business? That often is a thing. And then there's so many things there. So that's why my go-to answer always is BDR, Next Start.
And if you're having to give over portions of controlling interest to your company to a best practice group, that's not a best practice group.
That's not a best practice group. Absolutely. And so there's just so much stuff out there
you just have to ask the right questions.
Ask the right questions. Find the right networking group, like as your own people you trust. And then, it's like we remember in high school, right? We all went to high school and there's cliques. We're with the clique. I feel like we need to do that TikTok. There's definitely cliques in this industry. I think like we get into those spaces too where we want to blame, or not blame, but be like this industry. I've been talking to some people. Every industry has the same things, the same cliques, the same things, the same coaches, the same approaches, the same things that someone's trying to do. I think it's just gain knowledge and be smart, right?
And keep your group small of people that you actually trust, that you're going to share the critical information about your business
and the wins. Don't share the wins with everyone.
Sharing your win with everyone is not often, you think sharing that win was really going to be like, yes, I'm so excited, but sometimes it makes you a target for the next mission.
Which is sad that it happens in every industry, and we just happen to be in this one.
If your network looks like they participate in GTL, Gym Tan Laundry, well, tell us about that. How's Champion going? How things go?
2024 was a really trying year. We bought back our business from some partners we had, and we're kind of that was big in 24, and really it became like the last half was just rebuilding to what we started with, and it was definitely like pushing us to our limits and learning things that we really didn't have to do before. And for me, what really changed was, one of the things that I always used to talk about is like when you're in business with your spouse, like how do you make it work so that your marriage is okay? And prior to that, I would not be the one that would come into the shop. I would do all the business end of the stuff from home, like, all of the development, the financial, the marketing. So I didn't come into the shop so we could keep that separation. So something that really has changed for me is since beginning of August, I'm up here at the shop. And honestly, I really love it. And it's been really good and eye-opening. And we have figured out kind of a work rhythm that works for us. He's down there. I'm down here with our service manager. I have just really been really diving into financials and just operating. And next week, I'm going to Salt Lake City with our service manager to do service system with Next Star and just really getting back to the basics. And so
I'm proud of you, like stepping out of your comfort zone, jumping in, like you always were very hands-on into the business, but from home, now in the office. And you guys have some big wins of running profitable months in the last few months.
I texted, I feel like I've always had a mental block about numbers, and I've had some good conversations with Heather on there. It's just, but I got into the point where it was like, you cannot hide, you've got to dive in. And when I came in August, which is when kind of everything happened, I was diving into everything at once. And it was super overwhelming, but I'm so thankful for how it all played out. It was really just such an opportunity for me to grow as a person and as a business owner. And I definitely have a much better handle on the minutia of the day-to-day and how that feeds into the P&L and the balance sheet. And I've been, we brought in a fractional CFO, and I should have done that a long time ago. Truthfully, I should have done it a long time ago. But, it's probably really easy for me. I get super focused on what didn't go right. And I really don't want to be that way. But so many positive things have happened. And
that's really awesome to hear.
Pulling those P&Ls, like I hesitated to pull them because I really was just managing cash flow. But once I pulled them and I saw what I saw, I was like, okay, this is working.
Yeah.
Like we're okay.
We're okay. That's good. I love that.
We're okay. Yeah.
So much growth that's happened. And would you say that, and I know what the answer is going to be, and this is segging into Heather for sure, though. I think the number one contractor mistake is the lack of knowledge of numbers or hiring someone that has the knowledge of numbers. I mean, that was a huge piece for us this year with hiring Heather as our CFO. And even it doesn't really matter how much you think you know, unless you have that accounting background, you really don't. And having someone look at it and be able to point out some of the issues, that's been a game changer for us at Quality as well. And I think that's maybe a mistake that happens a lot in businesses is even with coaching even too, is it's like there's so much focus on the marketing and the job and the call and the whatever, but we don't get enough training on the numbers, the back numbers.
Well, and it's putting it in it for me. I had already had enough conversations with my bookkeeper and my CPA to have an understanding at a very top level understanding. But when I was cutting back and basically, we lost 90% of our staff, I had to let go vendors that I never let go. I didn't have those people. So, I just had to dive in. And it wasn't that I didn't have an understanding of KPIs because absolutely, we live and die by those. It wasn't even that I didn't have an understanding of financial reports. What I needed help on was, okay, here's where I'm at. Here's what's happened. Like, I need to know about cash flow. And I need to know how to make work what I have in my account right now. While I had to make really tough decisions, whereas before I would make the decision and worry about the consequence later because frankly, there was always money in the working capital account, right? And then when there wasn't, or it was really, really close, I didn't have anybody else. I mean, I've always had people in my life that I can ask questions to, but I wasn't able to put it all together. Whereas we had to right size our business. And that means we selling off assets. And then figure out how to get right and then grow back to where we were. And there was not a big amount of time to do that in. I mean, there just was not.
I think and the point in that too is that even though you had that top line understanding, you still didn't have the full accounting background that you needed. And that's where having someone like we have with Heather at Quality, and Heather, you know that.
Yeah.
I look at Heather all the time and I'm like, am I right? And she's like, yes, but
there's underlying and foundational pieces, I think, that a lot of business owners miss in the financial piece of their business. And then the other side, and I've said this forever, is I don't generate any revenue. I manage efficiency. I manage the business. I manage all the things that are financial, but I don't generate any revenue. And so when businesses are looking for the kind of help that I offer, it's a direct hit to your overhead. And a business owner typically doesn't see that as a value until they're in trouble.
Right.
And then it's all of a sudden you even said it. Why didn't we hire this fractional CFO sooner? And
most businesses' online presence is boring. And by being boring, they're losing out on potential sales and customers. Being interesting and exciting is what draws customers in and gets them to buy from you. But it's hard to be interesting online when you're focused on running your business and taking care of your customers. It doesn't have to be this way. We have the key to unlocking the solution to your problem. Key Hart Marketing can help take your business from boring to brilliant on social media. We can vouch for them. They run our podcast socials. If you want to have a strong social media presence that allows customers to know, like, and trust you, connect with Key Hart Marketing at keyhartmarketing.com.
It's hard.
I can't afford that CFO or I can't afford this. Whereas now I'm like, shit, I couldn't afford not to have her. And I needed her 4 years ago. Now in this thing, the timing is what was right. But it's like, how often are we told, in another podcast that I do, I was the Tulsa one, I was talking to a bookkeeper and he's great and he has a great service to offer, but he was telling us how his business works and it's a lot of the bookkeeping. And then he said, my team is required to touch that account once a week. If you're in a home service space, you need someone in your books daily. And once a week's not going to do it. And so I was going to all these classes and these conferences where we're talking about marketing and running the call and generating revenue. And so we're just throwing dollars at stuff, right? And then really knowing how to freaking manage it. But then we've all hired these bookkeepers to touch our accounts once a week because that is what they do, right? And so you need...
Well, that's the easiest part of finance.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the day-to-day stuff is not where you need... The difference between a fractional CFO and a bookkeeper is going to enter your accounts payable, run your payroll, just do the day-to-day things that keep the business moving forward. Somebody of a higher level, CFO, a controller, is going to analyze your business, is going to be in your business every day, is going to be touching things every day, is going to be looking at each thing departmentally and what is working and what isn't working. A bookkeeper is never going to do that.
But all our services, all of our businesses have been conditioned to hire bookkeepers. None of us were hiring people like this or fractional CFOs that were doing those higher level pieces. We're just hiring bookkeepers.
Yeah, I'll tell you a funny story about book. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And it's so common in our industry. And a long time ago, we're with Nexstar, but Sky had used BDR. And I love BDR. I think they're great for the smaller contractor. They have a lot of awesome classes and foundational things that smaller contractors need. But when I joined Sky Heating a little over 10 years ago, Travis says, well, we're going to go to BDR and I want you to work with this financial coach. And I remember sitting on the phone with her. She kept calling me a bookkeeper. I kept saying, I'm not a bookkeeper. Stop calling me a bookkeeper. If any of you know Anthony Crouch from Sky, he still teases me today. He'll say, oh, she's just a bookkeeper, because it's kind of under my skin a little bit. But BDR, this financial coach, she's like, well, don't get ahead of yourself here. And I'm like, okay, I'm just being patient and waiting for her to tell me something that I don't know. I don't know, a couple of months into working with her, I said, what are you trying to teach me? I grow companies. I come from a very long trades background. I've run $70 million companies that operated in 5 different states. So what are you trying to teach me? And she goes, well, I need you to be more than just a bookkeeper.
Well, but
you're like, if you say that one more time.
But the reason why the back practices groups do that is traditionally the person that they're coaching didn't have your background,
right?
And are typically the owner and they are the bookkeeper, right? And so they have to baby step them in. And so I think, which is fine, you want to learn it all, but how can you learn it all?
And I think the important part for me, and I can't speak for anyone else, is so I found a local. I knew when I was looking, and I was in kind of a time of distress when I was looking, which is not the best time to be looking for someone. But I talked to probably 10 different CFOs. Some were in our space, some were not in our space. They were all virtual. And then I found a local guy, and he'll come into my shop. And I will get to sit here and say, okay, this is what I see. And usually I already kind of know, but just having that voice of authority, because so many times when I will ask him something, he's like, Leslie, that is not going to happen. You're thinking of the worst case scenario. And it's just, there is no chance after looking at your historicals and how long you've been in business that that's going to happen to you. I'm not saying it can't, because I would go to the worst case scenario.
The sky is falling, the world's over.
Yes. And he would go, and I'm one of those people, it's just give me real information. Even if it's bad, just give me the real information so I can process it and know what to do with it. And I was not getting that at a time that I needed it. I was so grateful to have him. I think it was really good for me to have someone that wasn't connected to anyone in our space. There was no baggage there. He didn't know anybody, and he's local, and he's like, that's just not going to happen. And it was so validating to me, because I honestly realized I'm not as stupid as I think that I am. And I do have a pretty good grasp, but I needed that extra layer of support to go, okay, what do you think about me doing this? And it's not operational at all. All of it's connected, but it's okay, I need real information about cash, what I have now and where I'm going. And even though my growth plan says this, is that feasible for where I'm at with my liabilities? And there were times when it's not, you're not going to grow. You're going to right size. And then maybe we can talk about growing your way out of some of this stuff. And it was just so nice to have that, because I haven't had that. And my coaches, love next, they're not going to be able to tell me that either. Right.
Because
They're not my bank account
every day, and they're not doing that. Like with Heather too, I'll be like, can we do this? Or I want to do this. And she's like, yeah, and that's a capital expense or whatever. And I'm like, oh, because I wasn't looking at things.
And I go to Cancun and she's like, no, that's not a capital expense.
She didn't ask about that.
I brought that up to her today because I'm on that thread. And when I saw that in my head, I was like, I wonder what she's going to tell Heather.
I literally, whenever I told Heather, I had a sales pitch.
Did you have a PowerPoint presentation?
I basically did.
Is it going to fall under a marketing expense?
Absolutely. But it is definitely is training. But it's Cancun for the Rival Digital, like anyone listening, the Rival Digital Conference. But I was like, it's January. It's not the best time. And so I Heather with, okay, listen, this is the cost, but our plane tickets there, we're using American Express point. So that's done. I said it in such a way she could not say no.
She rationalized a yes out of me.
But, and then it really, I mean, it truly is a conference. It's just the location is in Cancun. So she asked me that this morning. She was like, how did you get Heather? And I was like, well, there was
When are you going? When is it?
The end of the month, right?
The end of this month. Yeah. I think January.
That'll feel good after the weather we're having.
For sure. That's typical because I normally go on the Johnstone trip in January, but it's in March this year. And every year when we're flying out for that trip, it's snowing or icing.
So cold.
Yeah. So it's typical for me to leave.
Cassie's sending me home early this week. I was supposed to be here all week.
Yeah, because it's going to snow and ice. And she's already been, like, we got stranded in Florida for a hurricane.
That's
not
right.
stranded, but
I remember that.
Then she flew into Tulsa in November, and there was
tornadoes. All my flights got canceled over and over and over again. And I'm like 3 hours away and stuck in Dallas.
So I was like, Heather, listen, I need to just send you go home on Wednesday. And then what will happen is we won't get the snow and ice. But if you stay, you're going to be stuck here till next week.
Are we supposed to get snow and ice this week?
Tomorrow, girl. Tomorrow. Okay. She's like, what?
I know.
We've been
trying to stand on it. But...
Actually, I think it might miss you. So that's probably, I think it's more lower than us right now. But it could, it's Oklahoma. It could change.
Yeah.
So
I'm not venturing any bets.
Yeah. If Heather would be staying in Tulsa, we would be getting blasted.
Heather has experienced all the weather systems that we get here in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I have
in
definitely
November.
have.
Who would have thought that I would be like, come to Oklahoma in November and I would have to have her dodge a tornado?
Or sick.
I mean, that's not the norm either.
That is not the norm.
She was messaging my husband when I was flying out, like, don't be mad, but there's tornadoes.
And don't freak her out. I promise. I will take care of her. That's so funny. But
you did. You took great care of me.
What's the plan for 2025?
The plan is just to get better and keep dialing it in. I don't know that we want to grow. I think something that I'm not saying the plan from the beginning, I feel like was always like grow. It's like you just grow, right? And, growing cannibalizes your cash flow and your mental stability. And I think we decided 25, we're just going to dial it in and hyper focus on our net. And so just getting better and better, implementing next star practices, putting people in the right seats, and just making really tough decisions. That's kind of where we live now.
I'm so proud of you.
Yeah.
I literally cannot tell you how proud I am of you. I am thankful for you. I'm going to start crying. I'm thankful that you spent the time with me to build this podcast.
Yes.
I'm thankful for our friendship. There was never a scandal. I talk to her every day. And
there was never a scandal.
No,
there was a scandal, but it had nothing to do with this podcast.
Me and you.
Okay.
Yeah. There was a scandal, but nothing to do with me and you. This podcast, we did some really badass things together, but we still talk every day. This week, she kept calling me and I was like, listen, I love you. And I swear I'm not ignoring you, but Heather's in town and she gets that and we get each other. And still, I want a best friend forever. Like you got me forever. So, but I'm proud of everything that you've overcame in 2024. You raised your head up and you just are a badass and you have so much to be proud of. You're so respected, so appreciated by so many people. And as women, we're not always great at giving ourselves the credit that we deserve. And so you deserve a lot of damn credit, girl.
Well, thank you. I'm so grateful for our relationship. And, this past year just really showed me that we can tend to focus on like a lot of the negative stuff in our space. But, There are so many good people in our industry. That became so clear to me at a time when I needed it. And we just have some amazing people in our space. And I feel supported. You know, you've always supported me. I love you both. Gotten to know Heather as well. I think she, you know, honestly, when Cassie was looking for a replacement and we'd had many conversations, she would say someone, it was kind of like, yeah, you know, maybe. But then however that conversation happened between you guys, I was like, yes, that's the one. If she says yes, that's your girl. You
she
know,
FaceTimed me and I was brushing my teeth.
And I'm like, real
we
quick.
have a lot of conversations like that too. It's fine.
Yeah. I'll be talking to her. She's like doing her skincare or whatever. But I called her and I'm like, she's brushing her teeth. I'm like, hey, real quick, I've just got a few minutes. I need to throw something at you because you know that's what I do, right? Yeah. Leslie's leaving the podcast. There's no issue. But did you want to be my co-host? And she's like, what?
Yeah.
And then I remember, Leslie, you'll love this. She goes, well, can you tell me about the time commitment? I was like,
good question. You got to ask the right questions.
That's a good question because I want to tell you it's what you think it is, but it's not. It's more than, you know, but it's.
How often are you guys filming? Like, how are you doing it differently now?
2 a week.
Yeah, we're
Wednesday.
trying to record 2 a week on Wednesdays. So used to, I would go to Oklahoma City or once a month and we would record 4 to 6 in a day.
Yeah.
And
that was hard.
Hard because by the time you get to that 5th or 6th episode, you're just out of words.
You're just mentally done.
I'm tired.
I'm tired.
Even we did 5 at Women of HVACR in Dallas this year. I was exhausted.
Where are you guys going this year? Do you know yet?
Well, we just decided to back out of AHR. So if you know anyone or if you're listening and expecting us at AHR, we're not going to be there this year. We are going to be, you know, the podcast, Leslie, you and I know this. We started it and it was always going to be this, you know, and then we jumped into the traveling. And then what we found real quickly is because there's not revenue. I mean, we've got some sponsorships, but there's not enough there. So our businesses were paying for us to travel. Yeah. And that wasn't ever what that was supposed to be. And so we're just going to be more strategic in what events we're going to. And we love AHR. We'll probably go back next year. We just needed to we're going to be maybe not, instead of running ourselves crazy to hit them all, we're just going to hit a few and then next year do the opposites. And so we are going to go to the Rilla event in Vegas.
Oh, that'll be fun. When is that?
At the end of February.
End of February.
Mm-hmm. And so if you're listening, Rilla's the sponsor.
Are you also going again in March for your birthday or something?
Yeah, not my birthday, but for our anniversary, my mom's birthday. So I'll be in Vegas back to back. But yeah. And then we have what other conference?
Super meeting in Colorado.
Well, then it'll go the end of the year. So then
I will probably go to super meeting.
In Colorado, we've got to, right?
I'm really trying to turn my brain around about conferences, and you know how I feel about conferences. And then I was telling, because I have to travel next week and I'm just auditing service system. I just feel so confined, like I'm trapped, like I'm in a seat. It reminds me of being in school again, but I'm really
get up and walk out if you need to. But once you get in there, the content's always so good.
They are good.
You know, conferences can be exhausting because it's
not on. You have to stay on the whole time.
And then when you're done with the conference, you go back, change clothes, and then go to dinner with the whole team again, you know, and so it's not 24/7, but basically about 15 hours on every day. Yeah. And so that does get to be a lot. And so I think in 2025, it's just, we're going to be, and not just for the podcast, but for quality and for our personal lives, just strategic and responsible with our time.
I love that. Your time and your money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not chasing rainbows that aren't necessary for the growth of our time or our money.
That's awesome. I love that.
I'm really excited for 2025. We're doing some kind of strategic changes with the team
at Quality.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's really going to be awesome. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for personal growth for the management team and the leadership. Mm-hmm. Very excited about that. So then that kind of came after the podcast Cassie's like, okay, and now you can come work for Quality.
I like.
Well, yeah, we didn't even really talk about that.
Heather in with the podcast, and then I just
while you're here.
And I was like, no, I'm taking a break. I'm going
to
take
some time.
You. And then she called me 2 weeks later and she goes, okay, you've had some time off.
Yeah. And she's like, I know. And then I was being real, I was being a real gentleman, I was being not to put pressure on you, but should you go back to work?
Was no an option?
No.
No. No, you're literally sitting in Oklahoma right now. Okay. It wasn't an option.
Yes. She's awesome.
No, I was excited about it. It was awesome. I did take a break, but not as long as I think my husband wanted. But I mean, Cassie knows me so well.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I'm going to take 2 months off. And I think in the back of her head, she's like, yeah, right.
Well, I had to make sure that everyone else snagged during the 2 months.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, listen, when you're ready, like this.
Wild West out there. So
on the phone. And she's like, nobody, I'm tapping you first.
Yeah.
No one else
Hey,
can touch you.
Yeah. So, well, Leslie, I love you.
Love you guys.
Good to see you. It was good to see you. And if, you know, all of our listeners, she's still out there. She's still available. Still fabulous.
I don't call it a comeback. Okay. I never left.
You never left. You never left.
Just working.
Love you.
Love you, Leslie.
Bye.
This has been Power Women of the Trades. Like what you hear so far? Leave us a review on Apple. And make sure to listen to our other episodes wherever you enjoy listening to your podcasts. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.